Welcome to the Risk Wheelhouse, the podcast where we navigate the ever-changing seas of risk management and technology. Join your hosts, Ori Wellington and Sam Jones, as they steer you through the latest trends, insights, and strategies shaping the future of integrated risk management. Ready to chart a course towards success? Hop aboard and let's set sail into today's deep dive.
You know, it's funny. Usually when we talk about diagnosing a problem in a business, we sort of expect it to look like medicine, right? Or engineering.
Right.
Like you break your arm, you go to the doctor, the x-ray shows this big jagged white line, and the doctor just points to it and says, there's the problem.
Yeah, it's totally visible. It's binary.
Exactly.
Yep.
And the path forward is undeniably clear. You cast it, you heal, you move on. We naturally crave that kind of procedural comfort.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone wants the step-by-step manual.
Right. But the moment you step into the corporate world right now, and specifically when you cross the threshold into artificial intelligence and risk management, I mean, that x-ray machine is completely shattered.
It's gone.
It's gone. The diagnostic landscape isn't just murky. It feels like every organization on the planet is currently experiencing this collective low-grade panic.
Yeah, that AI overwhelm.
Yes. Massive AI overwhelm. The technology is moving at, 1,000 miles an hour? And everybody in the boardroom is just throwing their hands up. They're screaming that we are flying completely blind and that we desperately need some kind of new set of rules to govern all this stuff.
You can practically feel the friction in almost every corporate corridor right now because, on one hand, you have the business unit leaders and they are just salivating over AI.
Oh, for sure. The efficiency gains alone.
Right. They see the efficiency, the cost reductions, getting that competitive edge. But then on the other hand, they are genuinely terrified of the blowback.
The regulatory blowback.
Regulatory, operational, you name it. So what do? They pivot to their risk and compliance teams, point a finger, and demand, give us the rules, build us the framework so we can use this thing without getting sued.
Yeah, fix it for us.
Exactly. And what happens in response to that demand is usually just a profound misdiagnosis of what the organization actually needs.
And that misdiagnosis is, it's actually the entire focus of our deep dive today.
Yeah.
Because we are pulling from a phenomenal, really provocative source text for this one.
It really is.
It's an article from the RiskTech Journal, and it's titled Beyond AI Frameworks, The Case for Risk Operating Models. And this is written by John A. Wheeler,
the CEO of Wheelhouse Advisors.
Right, exactly. Now, this is a piece that demands attention, I think, because it fundamentally challenges the prevailing narrative we keep hearing.
Yeah, you have an author here with over 3 decades of experience, executive management, IT, audit, risk.
Yeah.
He's a pioneer in integrated risk management technology.
Yeah.
And when someone with that kind of resume publishes a piece telling the entire profession that they're looking for answers in the completely wrong place,
Enough to listen.
You really have to sit up and examine the evidence.
Right. So here's our core premise and our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We are going to completely dismantle this wildly popular myth that we somehow lack the guidelines for AI risk.
Yes, the empty shelf myth.
You see this everywhere, on LinkedIn, in op-eds, in consulting pitches. Everybody say, oh, we don't have the frameworks. AI is too new. It's the Wild West.
It's exhausting.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at the hard evidence to prove why that narrative is just factually incorrect. And then we're going to pivot to the far more important question, which is, what does the profession actually lack to make artificial intelligence safe and effective in a corporate setting?
And it's a vital pivot because just debunking a myth, that doesn't help a chief risk officer sleep at night.
No, not at all.
We have to unpack the actual solution that these organizations are currently groping for in the dark.
So whether you are, prepping for a high-stakes board meeting where you have to defend your AI strategy, or whether you're a developer in the trenches actually building these tools, or hey, if you're just insanely curious about how society is trying to put guardrails on the most disruptive tech of our lifetime.
Which is fascinating all on its own.
Totally. This deep dive is going to reframe your entire perspective. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start by validating the author's primary frustration here, right?
Yeah, the article opens by calling out this epidemic of what he calls framework fatigue.
Framework fatigue. I love that term.
It's so accurate. And it's ironically paired with what we were just talking about, the myth of the empty shelf.
Right. This pervasive idea that the risk management cupboard is just completely bare when it comes to AI. It feels like, every couple of weeks, a new boutique consulting firm or some self-proclaimed AI ethicist publishes a white paper.
Oh, yeah. Let's build a framework together.
Right. They invite the industry to join them, acting like they were discovering fire for the very first time.
And every single one of those manifestos opens with the exact same tired premise. It's always some variation of, because no proven guide exists for the AI era, we must forge a new path.
And the article's response to that premise is just incredibly blunt.
Yeah.
It states plainly the claim is wrong and the error is expensive.
It is a massive reality check. I mean, risk, compliance, and governance leaders are not starved for guidelines right now. They are practically suffocating under them.
Okay, let's actually prove that. Let's look at the receipts here. If I'm a risk leader complaining that I have no guidance, what is actually sitting on the shelf behind me right now?
Well, the sheer volume is staggering when you actually lay it out. Let's just start with the baseline, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology.
Right, NIST.
NIST. They published their AI risk management framework back in January of 2023.
2023, so this isn't even new.
No, that was the foundational document. And then, recognizing the speed of the market, they followed it up with a highly specific generative AI profile in 2024.
Wow.
And on top of that, they're currently developing a critical infrastructure profile. So you already have a globally respected government-backed body providing tiered, highly specific guidance.
Okay, but critics might say, well, NIST is just an American standard, right? And it's voluntary. What about international enforcement?
Sure, that brings us to ISO/IEC 42001.
The ISO standards.
Right. Published in December of 2023. This is not a list of polite suggestions, okay? It is a certifiable international standard for AI management systems.
And people are actually using that.
Oh, it's not theoretical at all. The text notes that by the spring of 2026, roughly 350 organizations worldwide had already achieved these ISO certificates.
350.
Yeah, and we are talking about massive market movers here. AWS, Microsoft, KPMG, BCG.
Okay, I have to stop you there because getting an ISO certification is notoriously rigorous.
Oh, it's brutal.
Right. It's not a rubber stamp. If 350 massive global enterprises have already navigated a certifiable international standard for AI, the idea that no rules exist is just objectively ridiculous.
Exactly. But let's push even further into highly regulated sectors. Look at financial services.
Always the strictest.
Right. They have the Cyber Risk Institute's FSAI RMF. This was built in direct coordination with more than 100 financial institutions and the Financial Services Sector Coordinating Council.
Okay, so it's a huge collaborative effort.
Huge. And what it does is it takes the NIST framework and it operationalizes it for finance through 230 specific control objectives.
Wait, 230?
Yes. Mapped to different stages of AI adoption.
230 specific control objectives.
Yeah.
That sounds incredibly dense. Can you give me an example of what one of those actually looks like in practice, just so we aren't talking to abstractions here?
Sure. So a control objective in that framework wouldn't just say something vague like, make sure the AI is fair.
Right.
It would dictate something highly specific, like, the organization must maintain a documented lineage of all training data used in its algorithmic credit scoring models.
Wow.
Including protocols for continuous monitoring of data drift and a mechanism for human intervention if the model's output deviates beyond an established threshold.
That is incredibly prescriptive. I mean, it tells you exactly what you need to track, monitor, document.
It is. It's 230 variations of that level of detail. And if all this voluntary, international, and sector-specific guidance still isn't enough to convince people that rules exist.
Yeah.
Hovering above all of it is the ultimate hammer, the EU AI Act.
Oh, right. The big one.
This legislation takes all those best practices and turns them into mandatory supervisory expectations.
It's the law.
Exactly. It turns you really should do this into you must do this, or we will fine you a percentage of your global revenue.
All right, I want to step into the shoes of the listener for a second because there's a massive contradiction screaming at us right now.
Okay.
If we have NIST, if we have a certifiable ISO standard with hundreds of massive companies already passing the test, if we have 230 granular control objectives in finance alone, and we have the looming legal threat of the EU AI Act, why is a chief risk officer still banging their head against the desk asking for a new framework? I mean, are they just not reading the material? Is this pure laziness?
What's fascinating here is that it actually has nothing to do with laziness.
Really?
Not at all. Their frustration is incredibly real, and their pain is totally valid. The problem is they are fundamentally misdiagnosing the source of that pain.
Okay, how so?
When a practitioner tells you, I read the NIST framework, I looked at the ISO standard, but it just feels incomplete. It feels immature. They are actually making a very accurate observation. They're just drawing the wrong conclusion.
What do you mean? If it has 230 controls, how can it feel incomplete?
Because when they say it feels immature, what they really mean is that the framework isn't telling them how to build their internal systems.
Right.
It isn't telling them what underlying database architecture they need to purchase. It isn't telling them how to structure their data pipelines or what order to hire their talent in.
Okay, I see. They want a step-by-step instruction manual for building an AI risk program from scratch. Like, they want an IKEA manual, and they are mad that ISO handed them a list of engineering constraints instead.
That is the perfect way to phrase it.
Yeah.
Yes. Their observation that the framework doesn't tell them how to build the system is 100% correct.
Right.
But their conclusion that we therefore need to invent a brand new framework to finally get those instructions is fundamentally flawed. Because frameworks, by their very design, were never meant to answer build questions.
Are you ready to see risk management in action? At Wheelhouse Advisors, we've launched a new YouTube channel dedicated to integrated risk management. You'll find quick explainers, insights from our IRM Navigator research reports, highlights from the RiskTech Journal, and conversations from the Risk Wheelhouse podcast. We're covering the topics that matter most to executives and risk leaders, from AI governance and cyber insurance to operational resilience and regulatory change. Every video is designed to help you anticipate risks, adapt with confidence, and build resilience in a digital-first world. In our first video, we explain how ISO 42001, the EU AI Act, and the NIST AI Risk Management Framework can work together as a unified playbook for AI risk. Subscribe today at youtube.com/@wheelhouseadv and get the latest insights delivered directly to you. That's youtube.com/@wheelhouseadv. Subscribe now and stay ahead of the risks that matter most.
So a framework isn't an instruction manual for building a risk program. What is it? I think we should clearly define the actual mechanics of a framework here, because this distinction really feels like the hinge upon which this entire article turns.
It is. A framework in the world of governance is purely normative.
Meaning it sets a norm, a standard of behavior.
Precisely. It defines requirements, it outlines the necessary controls, and it lists the organization's obligations. It exists to answer one single, highly specific question.
Which is?
What must be true for your governance to be defensible?
Defensible. Let's unpack that word. Defensible against what? Like a lawsuit?
Defensible against an audit. Defensible against a regulatory examination. Defensible in front of a board of directors who are demanding assurance that the executives aren't just being completely reckless with customer data.
Right.
A framework is the ultimate defensive checklist. It's how external parties test your systems. And that is critical work. But that is exactly where the framework's job abruptly and intentionally ends.
It's the final exam.
Exactly.
You have to pass it to prove you aren't negligent,
Right.
but a final exam doesn't teach you the course material, and it certainly doesn't help you build the classroom.
No, it doesn't. And here's the kicker. The standards bodies themselves are completely transparent about this limitation.
Really, they admit it.
Oh, yeah. The article cites research by someone named Ori Wellington, who looked really closely at NIST's newly revised system planning guidance.
Okay.
Specifically, it's a document called SP818R2.
Catchy title.
Right. Very government. But what did that research reveal about how NIST views its own work?
Yeah, what did it say?
The examination showed that NIST explicitly describes its own document-based plan outlines as merely a starting point.
Yeah. It's a tool for organizations that are not yet mature enough for automated data-driven planning. The standards body is basically saying, look, here is the baseline artifact. If you complete this, you will achieve the minimum standard of being defensible.
Just the bare minimum.
Right. Getting anywhere beyond that baseline, actually operationalizing it, building the technology to make it efficient, that is entirely the organization's problem to solve.
Let me introduce an analogy here because I think this makes the sort of abstract reality of normative governance intensely relatable for people.
Go for it.
Let's think about building a physical structure, like a massive commercial office building.
Okay.
A framework in this context is the city building code. It's the city inspector's clipboard.
Right. The code mandates that, fire exits must be 48 inches wide, or the load-bearing steel must withstand a specific tensile stress.
Yes. The electrical panel needs a dedicated ground, stuff like that. The building code is normative. It exists solely to keep the building from collapsing and crushing the tenants.
It ensures the building is defensible against gravity, wind, and fire.
Right.
Now, imagine you buy a vacant lot. You hire a crew of highly skilled construction workers. You walk up to the foreman, you hand him a 600-page copy of the city building code, and you say, "All right, build me a beautiful, highly efficient, state-of-the-art office building."
The foreman would quit on the spot.
Because a building code is not a blueprint.
No.
The code tells you what you are not allowed to do.
Yeah.
It tells you the minimum standards you have to meet. But it doesn't tell you where to dig the foundation.
It doesn't sequence the plumbing so it doesn't cross the HVAC lines.
Exactly. It doesn't design the lobby to make it inviting for the people actually working there.
And this is exactly where the source text introduces the critical concept that fills this huge void. If the framework is the city building code, what the organization actually needs to hand to its risk and IT teams is the risk operating model.
The risk operating model, so that's the blueprint.
That's the blueprint. The operating model answers all the structural and sequential questions that the framework intentionally ignores.
Like what?
It asks, where does our risk function currently stand in its maturity? What specific piece of technology do we actually build first? How do all these disparate software tools and human processes wire together into a single unified architecture?
Right.
And crucially, how do we prove the return on investment to the board?
So frameworks are written for compliance. Models are built for action.
Exactly.
That feels like the core thesis we are dealing with here.
It is the defining realization. And the text warns about the massive financial and operational cost of confusing those two things.
I can imagine. What actually happens when an organization faithfully adopts a framework, mistakenly believing they've just bought a roadmap for building an AI risk program?
Well, it's pretty bleak. They implement the controls on paper, they fill out endless spreadsheets, they check all the ISO boxes.
Right, they do all the compliance work.
Yeah. And then they stand around totally bewildered, wondering why they haven't actually gained any new operational capability.
Wow.
Their AI systems are still risky, their developers are still frustrated by slow compliance bottlenecks. And the board is still nervous.
Because they built the constraints, but they forgot to build the engine.
Precisely. They define the requirements, but never design the build. The article points out that research on AI adoption consistently finds that the companies pulling ahead in the AI race are the ones with clear strategies and mature operating models.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No framework on Earth can supply that for you.
Okay, so this brings us to the actual architecture of action. We've established the diagnosis. Stop begging for a new framework. You need a blueprint. You need a risk operating model.
Right.
So let's examine the specific blueprint advocated in the text. The author points to the IRM Navigator model developed by Wheelhouse Advisors. And this model is broken down into two primary dimensions.
Yeah.
Let's start with the first dimension, architecture. Let's unpack how this model visualizes the digital architecture of a modern risk technology program.
Well, the model brilliantly simplifies the chaos of enterprise software by categorizing risk technology into three distinct interconnected systems.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is the system of record.
System of record. That sounds like the foundational database, like the vault.
That's exactly what it is. This is where all of your enterprise risk data is held. It's your static repository.
Yeah.
It holds the risk registers, the historical audit trails, the compliance documentation. It is absolutely essential because it is your single source of truth. But, and this is key, it is entirely passive.
Right. It doesn't do anything. It just holds things.
Exactly.
Okay, if the record is the vault, what is the second system?
The second is the system of engagement.
Engagement.
Yes. This is the connective tissue between the risk data and the actual human beings running the business.
Like the UI.
Exactly. Think of the web portals where a frontline manager submits a quarterly risk assessment. Think of the dashboards where executives review their compliance status. It's the user interface for risk.
So record is the storage, engagement is the human interface. What is the third?
The third is the absolute most critical layer for the AI era,
Okay.
the system of action.
Action.
This is where intelligence actually executes within governed boundaries. It's the dynamic, moving layer.
What lives there?
This is where you find automated workflows, continuous control monitoring, and most importantly, AI agents that can make real-time decisions based on the data in the record and the parameters set by the engagement layer.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the article points out a fatal, incredibly common flaw in how most companies are currently trying to implement artificial intelligence into their risk functions.
Oh, it's everywhere.
When a company buys an expensive new AI tool and is immediately disappointed by the results, the text traces that failure back to one highly specific architectural mistake.
Whoa.
What are they doing wrong with these three systems?
They are bolting their new AI intelligence directly onto the system of record instead of deliberately designing it into the system of action.
Wait. Let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around the mechanics of this, because this feels like the true aha moment of the piece.
It really is.
Let's go back to an analogy.
Okay.
Imagine you want to build a self-driving car. The system of record is the car's odometer, its fuel gauge, its diagnostic computer on a car. It holds all the historical and static data about the state of the vehicle.
Yes. It tells you what has happened.
The system of engagement is the dashboard, the screens, the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
It's how the human driver interacts with the machine.
Right.
And the system of action is the physical braking mechanism, the throttle, the steering column linkage.
Perfect. It's the mechanics of movement.
So what the article is saying is that Fortune 500 companies are going out, buying state-of-the-art billion-parameter AI intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and they are wiring it directly into the odometer.
Exactly. They are pointing their massive, expensive AI tools exclusively at their historical databases.
So what you get is a car that can write a beautiful, eloquent poem about how fast it was going yesterday.
Yes.
Or an AI that can generate a flawlessly formatted summary report about the exact wear and tear on the brake pads. But the car still cannot drive itself
No.
because they never connected the AI to the actual brakes and the steering the system of action.
Yeah.
They get a really smart, highly articulate tally of their historical data, but zero autonomous movement.
That analogy captures the frustration perfectly. When you bolt AI onto the system of record, you absolutely get better reporting.
Right.
You get faster summaries of your massive risk spreadsheets. And frankly, that's nice. It saves a few analysts a few hours a week.
Sure.
But it is not transformational. It doesn't alter the operational reality of the business.
So what does it look like if they do it right? If they actually wire it to the action layer?
If you want AI to actually mitigate risk in real time, if you want an AI agent to instantly spot a fraudulent transaction in a global supply chain and unilaterally block it within milliseconds, or if you want an AI to review a marketing campaign against regulatory guidelines and flag a problematic sentence before it ever goes live, you have to build a system of action. You have to give the AI the agency to execute.
I have to play devil's advocate here. If wiring AI to the system of action is so obviously the better, more transformational way to deploy it, why is every major corporation still just bolting it onto their system of record? Why do the dumb thing?
Because building a system of action is incredibly painstakingly hard.
Is it?
Oh, it is terrifying from an engineering perspective.
Why?
Because pointing an AI at a static database to write a report is safe, right? If it hallucinates, someone just proofreads it.
Oh, I see.
But building an action layer requires connecting disparate operational systems. It requires defining incredibly precise mathematical boundaries, establishing automated fail-safes, and actually trusting the technology to act autonomously within a defined risk appetite.
If an AI on the action layer hallucinates, it might accidentally shut down a critical payment gateway.
Exactly. It could cost the company millions in an instant. Building that requires a blueprint. It requires a risk operating model.
Right.
You cannot just read an ISO standard and suddenly know how to wire an AI to your operational breaks. The framework just says you must monitor risks. The model tells you how to build the fail-safe so the AI doesn't crash the company.
And this naturally brings up the friction of actually building this, which transitions us from the first dimension of the architecture into the second dimension.
Right, the element of time.
Exactly. We've talked about the physical structure, the three systems. But we have to talk about evolution. Because you can't just snap your fingers and build a flawless system of action overnight.
No, you absolutely cannot. And this is where a developmental dimension comes into play. The text refers to this as the IRM navigator curve.
The IRM navigator curve.
Yes. It traces the maturity path of a risk function over time. It is a literal map of evolution.
Let's walk through this curve, because I think anyone listening right now will immediately feel a twinge of recognition regarding where their own organization is currently stuck.
Oh, they definitely will.
Where does the curve begin?
It begins at the absolute bottom, where unfortunately a massive chunk of the corporate world still resides. Risk dysfunction.
That is a harsh label.
That's honest, though.
What does risk dysfunction actually look like on a Tuesday morning?
It looks like departmental trench warfare.
Yikes.
It looks like the cybersecurity team not talking to the enterprise risk team, who actively avoids the compliance team.
I know a few companies like that.
We all do. It looks like hundreds of conflicting Excel spreadsheets floating around on local hard drive.
The dreaded spreadsheets.
It is a completely reactive posture where the only time risk is managed is after a crisis has already exploded in the news.
It sounds chaotic and miserable. So how does an organization claw its way out of dysfunction? What is the next stage?
The next stage is foundational. This is where you finally stop the bleeding and get a handle on your data.
But getting to foundational requires massive friction, right? It's not just a mindset shift.
It is brutal, unsexy data engineering work. You have to consolidate those hundreds of spreadsheets. You have to establish a common risk taxonomy.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning you literally have to force different departments to agree on the definition of a high-risk event so everyone is speaking the same language.
That sounds like a lot of meetings.
Endless meetings. You establish a solid system of record. You aren't agile yet, you aren't predictive, but you are no longer drowning in chaos.
Okay, so you've cleaned the data, you move from dysfunction to foundational, then what?
Then you move to coordinated. Now those isolated risk silos are actually talking to each other.
Okay, progress.
Information is shared across departments via a maturing system of engagement. The business units begin to realize they have a role to play in risk management rather than just viewing the compliance team as the department of no that slows down their launches.
Right, and after certinated.
You reach embedded. And this is a major culturally difficult milestone. Risk management is no longer a separate, periodic, box-ticking exercise. It is physically embedded into the daily operations of the business.
Give me an example of embedded. What's the practical difference between coordinated and embedded?
So in a coordinated state, a software development team builds a new app, and right before launch, they send it to the risk team for a review.
Okay.
It's coordinated, but it's sequential. In an embedded state, risk analysis is part of the daily agile sprint.
Oh, I see.
The risk parameters are built into the code repository. The risk function is in the room while the product is being designed, not acting as a toll booth at the very end.
I feel like embedded is where most Fortune 500 companies think the journey ends. Like they reach that stage and declare victory.
Many do plant their flag there, but the curve continues.
What's next?
The next stage is extended. This is where your risk visibility pushes beyond your own four walls. You are managing third-party risks dynamically.
Like supply chain stuff.
Exactly. You are just trusting a vendor's yearly questionnaire. You are continuously understanding the risk posture of your supply chain and your partners in real time.
Okay, so we've climbed from dysfunction to foundational to coordinated to embedded to extended. What is at the absolute peak of this mountain?
This is where we cross the threshold into the intelligence era. The next stage is autonomous IRM.
Autonomous IRM.
Yes. This is where those systems of action we talked about really come alive. Routine controls monitor themselves. Baseline risk assessments are handled by AI agents without human intervention.
Wow.
And finally, at the absolute horizon of the curve, you reach risk agency.
Risk agency. It sounds like science fiction.
It sounds futuristic, but it's the logical, inevitable conclusion of the operating model.
How so?
This is where AI agents are granted the agency, the authorized power to not just monitor data, but to execute complex risk mitigation strategies autonomously.
Just totally on their own.
As long as they stay within a strictly defined mathematical risk appetite set by the board of directors.
Yeah. Now, the author makes a very aggressive point in the article about why this curve is a map and not just a taxonomy.
It really does.
Because, let's be honest, the corporate world loves a good taxonomy. Consulting firms love to throw 5 progressive adjectives on a PowerPoint slide Charge $1 million and call it a day.
Oh, definitely.
So what makes this a map rather than just a list of labels?
A taxonomy just gives you vocabulary to describe your current state. A map tells you the exact route from point A to point B, and it explicitly warns you about the impassable terrain in between.
Right.
The article points out that each transition on this curve is bridged by a specific, necessary technological and cultural investment. It tells a leader where they stand, what specific architectural system they need to build next.
And what else?
And this is the most vital warning in the entire text why these stages cannot be skipped.
Let me push back on that.
Okay.
If I'm a CEO with a massive budget and I'm currently in risk dysfunction, why can't I just buy the best AI software on the market and leapfrog directly to autonomous IRM? Why can't I buy my way to the top of the curve?
Because of the foundational laws of data engineering, you cannot jump from risk dysfunction to autonomous IRM because AI requires clean, normalized, structured data to train its models and execute actions.
Oh.
If your current state is 500 conflicting Excel spreadsheets managed by angry siloed managers, and you drop a billion-parameter AI agent into that environment, the AI isn't going to fix the dysfunction.
It's just going to be confused.
It's worse. It is simply going to automate your chaos at the speed of light. It will hallucinate wildly based on bad data and confidently execute terrible decisions.
That is such a vital warning. Because you see executives read an article in an in-flight magazine about AI risk agents, and they fly back to their deeply dysfunctional spreadsheet-reliant company and demand risk agency by Q3.
And it fails spectacularly, wasting millions of dollars. The model explains exactly why it fails. You have to climb the curve. You have to build the system of record before the system of action has anything reliable to act upon.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this completely reframes the entire narrative around AI in the risk profession. Like, AI isn't some alien invasion that destroys everything we know about risk management.
It absolutely does reframe it. When you take the intelligence era, all this generative AI, these autonomous agents, real-time risk positioning, and you map it against this developmental curve, the chaos instantly clarifies.
It stops being an unprecedented anomaly.
Exactly. You realize that having real-time risk visibility, having controls that monitor themselves, having agents execute routine tasks, none of this actually requires a brand new conceptual category.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't require us to burn the old playbook. It is simply the upper half of a maturity path that integrated risk management, or IRM, has been pointing toward for almost a decade.
That is a phenomenal insight. AI isn't a disruption to the model. It is the realization of the model's ultimate destination.
As the article states, the AI era is not a successor to integrated risk management. It is integrated risk management finally arriving at the destination it has envisioned since the category was created.
Okay, you just said the magic acronym. Integrated Risk Management, IRM.
Yes.
The article spends a significant amount of time defending this specific vocabulary. Wheeler notes that people constantly ask why his firm is so rigid. He even uses the word stubborn about sticking to the term IRM instead of inventing some fresh, sexy, new AI-specific acronym.
Right.
To understand this stubbornness, the article gives us a really important lesson in category history.
And it's a history lesson that every modern tech leader needs to internalize, because we are doomed to repeat it right now if we aren't careful.
Let's hear it.
We have to rewind to the early 2000s and look at the rise of the term GRC.
GRC, Governance, Risk, and Compliance. I hear that term constantly. It feels like the default language for the industry.
It is ubiquitous, but the origins of that term are deeply problematic.
Why?
The text points out that GRC entered the market primarily as a consultant's label. It wasn't born out of rigorous data-driven research. It was essentially a marketing portmanteau created to sell advisory services.
Oh, I see.
And because it lacked a strict, rigorous architectural definition from the outset, the entire profession ended up wasting the better part of a decade just arguing over what GRC actually covered.
A wasted decade. Let's think about the opportunity cost of that. While cyber threats were evolving rapidly, while the 2008 global financial crisis was brewing, the risk profession was sitting in conference rooms arguing about taxonomy.
Exactly.
It's like arguing whether a tomato is a fruit or a vegetable while the kitchen is actively on fire.
That is the perfect analogy. Vendors were making wild, overlapping claims. Consultants were billing millions for GRC readiness assessments without a universally agreed-upon standard.
Ridiculous.
Progress was completely stalled by semantic debates because the category had no structural floor. Now, contrast that chaotic, wasted decade with how the category of IRM integrated risk management was created.
The article says IRM took a fundamentally different path. It wasn't a consultant's marketing invention. It was created in 2016 inside Gartner's research organization.
Right. It was born inside the world's largest technology analyst firm, which means it wasn't a brainstorm on a whiteboard. It was defined from day one with a highly structured scope.
What was the scope?
It specifically spanned enterprise risk management, operational risk, IT, and cyber risk, and it deliberately subsumed those old GRC functions. It was grounded in years of deep research and massive amounts of client inquiry data.
So what does this all mean in a practical sense? Why does it matter to a chief risk officer today that IRM came from research rather than a marketing brochure 10 years ago?
Because it meant that buyers, software vendors, and corporate boards had a shared, structurally sound vocabulary from day one. When you have research-backed category creation, it buys the market something incredibly valuable.
Which is?
Momentum. As the text puts it, it allows the market to spend its energy actually adopting the discipline instead of endlessly litigating the definition.
And why is this history lesson so urgent right now in the middle of this AI explosion?
Because the exact same temptation to waste a decade exists right now. There's a massive financial temptation for commentators and software vendors to invent fresh labels for this new AI territory.
Oh,
They want to call it AI GRC or cognitive risk posture management or some other buzzword so they can claim they invented it and sell you the solution.
and the article argues that every time we invent a new label, we forfeit the momentum we've spent years building.
Exactly. Category continuity is essential for survival. If we invent a new category for AI risks, those new definitions will get litigated all over again.
Right.
Vendors will argue over what constitutes true AI GRC. Corporate boards who just finally understood what IRM means will have to be completely re-educated on this new paradigm.
Which takes forever.
And while everyone is busy arguing over PowerPoint slides, the underlying obligations, the actual existential risks of deploying AI are compounding exponentially.
The intelligence era just moves way too fast for us to afford the luxury of semantic debates. We cannot waste another decade arguing over definitions while autonomous AI systems are actively being integrated into our financial systems and critical infrastructure.
Category continuity lets the profession spend its effort on the climb. That is one of the most powerful and pragmatic sentences in the article.
It really is.
Stick to the IRM model. Stick to the vocabulary the board already understands. Use it to map out the next stage of the climb rather than trying to build a completely new mountain.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem, we've explored the architecture of the action layer, we've mapped out the maturity curve, and we've established why we need to stick to the IRM vocabulary to maintain our momentum.
We've covered a lot.
We have.
Yeah.
Let's bring this home for the listener. Let's transition into the final, highly actionable advice provided in the source text. If I am a risk leader, an IT director, or a board member listening to this deep dive right now, what is the blueprint for my next Monday morning? How do I actually start building?
The text provides a very clear 4-step practical guide, and it starts with a directive that I think is going to relieve a massive amount of anxiety for a lot of professionals.
Okay, lay it on me.
Step 1, pick a framework floor and stop shopping.
Stop shopping. I love that. Stop agonizing over which framework is the perfect one for your unique snowflake of a company.
Exactly. Pick NIST. Pick ISO/IEC 42001. If you are in a heavily regulated sector like finance, pick your specific sector standard. Choose one to be your floor, your baseline for defensibility.
Makes sense.
The text explicitly notes that these framework floors are much more alike than they are different. They all ultimately aim at the exact same fundamental governance principles.
So they're mostly overlapping anyway.
Right. So pick one, commit to it, and stop wasting your time looking for the magic, perfect framework that is somehow going to build the system for you. It doesn't exist.
That is incredibly freeing. Just pick a building code so you can start pouring concrete. Okay, what is step 2?
Step 2, do the harder internal work. Locate your risk function on the maturity curve.
And you have to be brutally honest here.
You really do. Look at the IRM navigator curve. Are you in risk dysfunction? Are you foundational? Are you coordinated? You cannot plot a reliable course to your destination if you refuse to acknowledge where you are currently standing.
Brutal honesty is key. If you have 500 spreadsheets managing your cyber risk, you are not in the embedded stage no matter what your marketing brochure or your CEO says. You are in dysfunction. Own it so you can fix it. Okay, step 3.
Step 3, determine the next build. Look at the 3 architectural systems we discussed. the system of record, the system of engagement, and the system of action. Based on exactly where you are on that maturity curve, figure out which of those three systems requires your next dollar of investment.
So if your data is a scattered mess, spend your money building the record.
Exactly.
If your business units are ignoring the risk team, invest in the engagement layer to make it user-friendly.
Yes.
And if you are mature enough to automate mitigation, deliberately design the action layer.
Exactly. Don't just bolt an expensive AI chatbot onto your messy database and tell the board you are doing AI risk management. Deliberately design the next required system.
And the final step,
Step 4. Sequence the build accordingly and hold each stage accountable.
accountability.
Once you know what to build, sequence it logically so you aren't skipping vital data engineering steps. And hold the technology and the internal team accountable for the value that their business case originally promised. Don't let a digital transformation project drag on for 3 years without delivering tangible operational capability.
It's a beautifully clear blueprint. And the article wraps up with the final truth that perfectly encapsulates everything we've debated today.
It really does.
Compliance passing the audit, ticking the framework boxes, satisfying the city inspector, will confirm if your program is defensible. It will keep you out of regulatory jail. But it will never, ever tell you what to actually build next to improve the operations of the business.
No, it won't. That is the model's job. That is the blueprint's job. And as the author notes, it is undeniably the harder job.
And for anyone listening who wants to actually see this blueprint with their own eyes, the text does mention that the complete IRM Navigator Curve research, including the very specific stage-by-stage capability requirements all the way up to autonomous IRM, is available on the RTJ Bridge.
That's right.
You can find that at wheelhouseadvisors.com.
Highly recommended for anyone who is actually tasked with executing this build.
So let's recap this incredible journey we've just been on. We started by confronting this collective illusion, this framework fatigue, where everyone believes we are flying blind into the AI era without any rules.
Yep.
We looked at the massive stacks of rigorous guidance already on the shelf. From NIST, from ISO, from the EU, we realized that our frustration isn't actually a lack of rules, it's that we were confusing the city building code for the architect's blueprint.
We moved from the illusion of a missing framework to the reality of a missing operating model.
Right.
We broke down the critical architecture of the action layer, emphasizing exactly why you cannot just bolt multi-million-dollar AI intelligence onto a static record and expect autonomous results.
And we stressed the vital historical importance of maintaining category continuity, sticking to the IRM vocabulary, so we don't waste another decade arguing about definitions while the technology leaves us completely behind. It is a profound shift in perspective. But before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on. Something that builds on this source material, but pushes us to think about the ultimate endgame of all this technology.
This raises an important question, actually, and it's one that touches on the very nature, the philosophy of human work in the corporate future.
Exactly. Let's look at the absolute horizon of that IRM Navigator curve, the stages of autonomous IRM and risk agency.
Okay.
The text tells us that at this highest level of maturity, artificial intelligence is handling the routine execution. AI agents are operating autonomously inside a strictly defined risk appetite.
Right.
They're monitoring the controls, they are flagging the standard anomalies, they are doing the heavy lifting of continuous governance at a speed no human could match.
And what happens to the human professionals in that scenario? The text says they are redeployed to design, validation, and exception judgment.
Right, exception judgment. If we successfully build this incredible risk operating model, if we perfectly wire the AI to the brakes and the steering wheel of the corporate machine, and the AI flawlessly handles all the baseline rules of risk,
Yeah.
does the human role in the corporate world ultimately become nothing more than managing the exceptions?
It's a staggering thought. If the system of action is entirely automated and functioning perfectly, the only time a human is required to intervene is when the AI encounters a scenario it wasn't programmed to handle.
Yeah.
A completely novel black swan event, a strategic pivot that contradicts all historical data, or a profound ethical gray area.
Are we designing a future where humans are no longer the actual operators of the business?
I mean, maybe.
Are we no longer the drivers of the car, but simply the safety valves, sitting passively in the passenger seat, only allowed to touch the wheel when the AI gets confused? Is human professional life destined to become an endless, high-stakes series of ethical tiebreakers and operational exception handling?
It is the ultimate paradox of building a perfect system of action. You build it so you don't have to act. But then, what is the nature of your job? It forces us to ask what uniquely human judgment actually is if it's no longer needed for 99% of daily corporate operations.
It's a slightly unsettling but incredibly fascinating reality we are racing toward. We are building the blueprint, we are handing the code to the construction crew, but we might just be building a magnificent office building where the AI does all the actual work, and we just sit in the lobby waiting for an alarm to go off.
The blueprint is essential to survive the present, but the destination it points to will fundamentally change what it means to be a professional in the future.
And that is exactly why you need a map. Not just to know what to build today, but to prepare yourself for where the road actually ends. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Whether you're returning to untangle your spreadsheets or presenting a new strategy to your board tomorrow, we hope you look at that building code in a completely new light. Have a great week of learning, and we'll catch you on the next one.
That wraps up another episode of the Risk Wheelhouse. Thank you for spending time with us at Wheelhouse Advisors today. We hope you found the conversation insightful and actionable for your organization's risk strategies. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. If you're looking for more in-depth analysis and thought leadership on risk technology, be sure to visit the RiskTech Journal at theriskTechJournal.com. It's your go-to source for comprehensive articles, expert interviews, and the latest trends shaping the industry. Subscribe today to stay informed. For any inquiries or feedback, please contact us directly at info@wheelhouseadvisors.com, or feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn and x.com and share your thoughts or suggestions for future topics. Visit wheelhouseadvisors.com for more information and resources. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, navigate wisely.